We're watching centuries of wisdom crumble before our very eyes, and the culprit might surprise you. It's not a lack of knowledge, it's narcissism. In today's world, we're drowning in misinformation. But this isn't just random or accidental. It's actually a symptom of something much, much deeper: the death of expertise. Today, we'll explore why this is happening, what it means for society, and how it's reshaping the way we value knowledge. So hi, welcome to Wise Words, where we take the most thought-provoking books and break down their key ideas to make them actionable for your life. Today we're diving into The Death of Expertise by Tom Nichols, a powerful look at why society is rejecting knowledge, the impact this has on our world, and the forces driving this alarming trend. So here's how this video is structured. We're going to cover the rejection of expertise first. We're going to explore how narcissism, misinformation, and distrust are eroding centuries of hard-earned knowledge. We're then going to move on to how education fuels this crisis, discovering how the commodification of learning and fragile egos are replacing critical thinking with hollow credentials. We're then going to take a look at the internet's role, how this tool reshapes not just what we know, but how we think, and why it amplifies misinformation. We're then going to look at cultural influences, the dangers of celebrity opinions overshadowing expert knowledge, and the erosion of respect for expertise. By the end, you'll have a deeper understanding of why expertise is under attack and how this shift is impacting society as a whole. So if you're new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Wise Words for more insights from the best books. So now let's get started with why society is turning its back on expertise. So, starting with part one, the rejection of established knowledge, the rise of narcissism and disdain for expertise. So why do people reject expertise in today's world? Well, Tom Nichols argues that it's not simply mistrust, it's something much deeper: narcissism. So in the past, skepticism about experts often came from a desire to seek better answers, but now, rejecting expertise has become a form of self-validation, a way for people to feel independent and empowered. It's as if saying, I don't need experts, I have my own truth. But there's a darker side to this. Nichols points out that many people rejecting expertise also lack basic knowledge. Even worse, they dismiss the rules of logic and evidence from the foundation of critical thinking. So what's the risk? Well, when we reject expertise, we're not just ignoring advice, we're throwing away centuries of accumulated knowledge that took generations of trial and error to build. Imagine a society where science, history, and logic are just seen as optional. How would we even make progress? So the key takeaway here is the rejection of expertise isn't just about mistrust, it's about ego. It's up to us to recognize when we're dismissing knowledge for the wrong reasons. So, the erosion of trust between experts and society. Society depends on experts to function. From the engineers who design our bridges to the doctors who save our lives, we place trust in professionals every day. This trust isn't blind, it's built on a network of institutions like universities, licensing boards, and certification authorities. These systems work to ensure that experts are qualified and accountable. For example, when we hear about a rare case of malpractice, it shocks us, precisely because it's unusual in a world where millions of professionals succeed every day. But what happens when this trust breaks down? Well, Nichols warns that when the relationship between experts and laypeople deteriorates, it creates a dangerous divide. As laypeople become increasingly skeptical, questioning every decision that experts make, experts in turn become dismissive, seeing the public as uninformed or even hostile. This breakdown can lead to two very extreme outcomes. One of them is mob rule, where the public opinion overrides evidence and expertise, leading to chaotic decision-making, something we could probably see happening now. And then two, elitist technocracy, where experts seize control, ignoring the voices of ordinary people, which you could look at potentially COVID, or something similar. Both outcomes are authoritarian and neither aligns with the principles of democracy. So the key takeaway here is, trust is the very foundation of the relationship between experts and society. And when that trust collapses, the systems that keep society running start to fall apart. So moving on to part two, the misunderstanding of equality. Equal rights vs equal opinions. So one of the biggest misconceptions driving the rejection of expertise is the belief that political equality equals intellectual equality. In a democracy, everybody's voice matters. But does that mean everybody's opinions are equally valid? Well, Tom Nichols argues no, and he's not alone. Here's a great example from the book. A student once said to a professor, "Your guess is as good as mine," To which the professor replies, "My guesses are much, much better than yours." Well, why does he even say this? Well, because expertise is built on years of study and training, and experience is not arrogance, it's just reality. Think about it, would you trust somebody with no medical training to perform surgery, or let somebody without engineering experience design a skyscraper? Probably not. Yet when it comes to debates about science, policy, or history, many people act as if their all opinions are equal. This mindset is dangerous because it confuses respect for opinions with respect for expertise. Yes, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but that doesn't mean every opinion is equally informed or valid. What's worse is sometimes there's ulterior motives behind these claims to equality. Nichols goes even deeper, explaining that some claims to this equality, particularly outside the political realm, are driven by a sense of inferiority. And here's the pattern. When people feel inadequate, they often resent expertise. So instead of aspiring to learn, they tear down those who know more. This leads to a cycle of resentment, where expertise isn't just dismissed, it's actively denigrated. For example, think of the backlash that experts often face online. Rather than engaging with their arguments, critics might attack their credentials or motives, framing them as elitist or out of touch. The key takeaway here is claims to equality can sometimes stem from resentment of expertise, and not even a desire for fairness. So now let's look at the amplification of false equality. So the rise of social media has made this problem even worse. Platforms amplify every voice equally, regardless of expertise. So an expert's carefully researched explanation can be drowned out by somebody with no qualifications, but a louder and more confident message. So this is where Nichols' argument hits home. Respecting somebody's right to have an opinion doesn't mean treating that opinion as fact. So the key takeaway once again here is democracy gives us equal rights, but it doesn't make all opinions equal. We need to distinguish between respecting perspectives and equating all knowledge. Part 3. Education as a contributor to the problem. So let's look at higher education in the frame of a consumer good. So Tom Nichols highlights a troubling trend in modern education: the transformation of colleges into consumer-driven businesses. Think about it. College was once about intellectual growth, challenging students to think critically and deeply about the world. But today, it often feels like a transaction. Pay your tuition, get a degree. Here's the issue. When students become clients instead of learners, the focus shifts from fostering knowledge to building self-esteem. Degrees no longer signify deep understanding. They often reflect attendance or tuition payment, rather than mastery. This commodification has led to credential inflation. Just as printing more money devalues currency, churning out more degrees devalues education. What used to be a mark of genuine achievement now risks becoming a formality. Now let's look at the coddling of the mind. So education's role as a consumer product doesn't just dilute its value, it also creates fragile egos. Students today are often shielded from discomfort, praised without merit, and encouraged to avoid intellectual challenge. This coddling builds a false sense of confidence, but what happens when these students enter the real world? Well, Nichols explains that when these illusions are shattered by a demanding boss or a challenging idea, many people lash out instead of adapting. And this fragile mindset has ripple effects. It fuels attacks on expertise and undermines universities as a place of debate and growth. So let's look at these flawed perceptions of expertise. But another problem here is people often reject expertise by pointing to isolated mistakes. Experts aren't always right, they say. And they're not wrong. Experts do make errors. But Nichols argues that this doesn't mean experts are unreliable. In fact, experts are often more right than wrong, especially on critical matters. Yet many laypeople focus on the loopholes or the outliers to discredit the broader body of knowledge. Take aviation as an example. If one plane crashes, some may argue that flying is unsafe, ignoring the overwhelming data that proves otherwise. Nichols reminds us that anecdotes don't outweigh data, no matter how emotionally compelling they are. So the key takeaways here. 1. Higher education has become a transaction, prioritising degrees over genuine learning. 2. We have the shielding of students from discomfort, which builds fragile minds unprepared for critical debate. And then 3. The occasional mistake doesn't invalidate expertise, but experts are still more reliable than the anecdotes. Part 4. Conspiracy theories and psychology of fear. So, why do conspiracy theories even exist? Why do people believe in conspiracy theories even when there's evidence to disprove them? Well, Tom Nichols explains that conspiracy theories offer something people desperately crave: control. When faced with random frightening events like a global pandemic or a natural disaster, many of us look for a reason, a culprit. It's easier to blame someone than to accept that the universe is chaotic, or worse, indifferent. Nichols points out that without a coherent explanation, people are left with 3 unsettling choices. 1. Blame God. 2. Blame pure chance. 3. Blame themselves. None of these are comforting, so instead, conspiracy theories step in, providing a simple but flawed narrative. Somebody is behind this. Why is there such an impervious nature, though, to these conspiracies? Well, the real danger is that conspiracy theories are designed to be immune to evidence. So if evidence contradicts the theory, it's dismissed as a cover-up, and if there's a lack of evidence, that's proof of how well the conspiracy is being hidden. So this means even contradictory facts are woven into the narrative as further confirmation. For example, think of a conspiracy theorist who believes a shadowy group is controlling the world. If you show them the evidence to disprove it, they might say, "Of course you'd say that, you're part of the cover-up." It's a really self-sealing loop. Now let's look at how the psychology of fear plays into this. Well, conspiracy theories always thrive because they reduce existential fear. Accepting that the world is unpredictable, or that bad things happen to good people without reason, is very deeply uncomfortable. Nichols argues that conspiracies replaces uncertainty with a sense of purpose, even if it's built on falsehoods. So the key takeaway here is, conspiracy theories aren't just about misinformation, they're about managing fear and regaining a sense of control of the world. Recognising this is the first step to combating them. Part 5. The internet and its impact on knowledge. A vessel and not a referee. So the internet is the most powerful information tool humanity has ever created. But here's the catch, it doesn't differentiate between truth and lies. Tom Nichols has a perfect analogy for this. He describes the internet as a vessel and not a referee. It holds everything, accurate facts, outright falsehoods, and everything in between, but without any judgment or moderation. This creates a rather unique problem. People can find evidence for anything they want to believe, whether it's credible or not. The internet will always provide the answers. And because the internet is so vast, everybody feels justified. Why question yourself when you can find a website or forum that confirms you're right? This leads us to the changing nature of thought. Nichols explains that the internet isn't just shaping what we know, it's changing how we even think. We become conditioned to expect instant answers. Nobody wants to spend hours analysing complex ideas when a quick Google search can give a summary in seconds. This leads to shallow understanding instead of learning deeply. We skim for what's convenient and appealing. Even worse than this, the internet often reinforces our confirmation bias. I mean, people don't go online to change their beliefs. They go to have them validated. Here's an analogy Nichols uses. Thinking you're an expert because you search the internet is like thinking you're a good swimmer because you got wet walking in the rain. Moving on to the shadow of connectivity. In a slower, less connected world, misinformation spread more slowly, but now the internet allows fringe ideas to reach global audiences instantly. This creates echo chambers, where people surround themselves with others who share their beliefs, no matter how extreme or unfounded. The result? The democratization of information leads to a dangerous, false equivalence. Popularity begins to outweigh expertise, and facts are treated as subjective. For example, a viral opinion on social media might overshadow a scientific consensus simply because it's more engaging or dramatic. So the key takeaways. The internet amplifies misinformation because it doesn't filter truth from falsehood. 2. Instant answers encourage shallow thinking, replacing deep understanding with surface-level knowledge. 3. Connectivity creates echo chambers, reinforcing false beliefs and undermining expertise. Part 6. The death of debate. So let's agree to disagree. Have you ever been in a conversation that ended with, "Let's just agree to disagree"? It might feel like a peaceful way to end a disagreement, but Tom Nichols argues a part of a deeper problem, the death of meaningful debate. In today's culture, insisting that some things are objectively true can make you seem rude or arrogant. So instead of resolving disagreements through facts and evidence, we often fall back on this phrase to avoid the discomfort. Nichols calls this a conversational fire extinguisher, a way to douse the flames of debate without actually addressing the issues at hand. But when we stop debating, we stop learning. Nichols also critiques the idea that crowds always make wise decisions. While group input can sometimes be valuable, not every question is suited for a vote. Take this example. Which number is bigger, 15 or 5? Or do owls exist? These aren't questions or opinions, they're matters of fact. Yet in a world where every voice carries equal weight, even basic truths can feel negotiable. Comedian John Oliver sums it up perfectly. You don't need to poll a fact. The internet has made this worse by creating a false equivalence. When opinions are presented as equal to facts, expertise is always then overshadowed by the popularity, as discussed before. The loudest voices then always seem to win, even if they're wrong. So what are the consequences then of avoiding debates? The real danger is when we avoid debate, we lose the opportunity to refine our ideas. Nichols argues that disagreement, when done respectfully, is one of the most powerful tools for learning and growth. But without it, we risk creating echo chambers where only agreeable ideas survive. This not only undermines expertise, but also limits our ability to think critically. So the key takeaways here. Let's agree to disagree is often a shortcut that avoids meaningful resolution. Crowds are not always wise. Some questions demand expertise and not consensus. And then lastly, true debate challenges us, refines ideas, and fosters growth. Avoiding it weakens our understanding. So part 7, we're going to move on to the failures in journalism and prediction. Why does journalism often feel like it prioritises entertainment over truth? Well, according to Tom Nichols, it's because modern media isn't designed to inform, it's designed to cater to what people want. This shift is driven by the convergence of technology and capitalism. News outlets now compete for clicks, views and shares, which means their survival depends on giving audiences what they crave, even if it's not what they need. The result? Well, complex issues get oversimplified, stories are sensationalized, and misinformation thrives because it's often more engaging than the truth. Another issue lies in society's demand for prediction over explanation. In the hard sciences, predictions are tied to clear, measurable phenomena. For example, once we understand gravity, we can predict how objects will fall. But in fields like social sciences or economics, conclusions are often probabilistic and not absolute. And here's the problem. Lay people tend to see these nuanced predictions as failures when they don't pan out. For instance, if an economist predicts a recession but it doesn't happen, people might dismiss the entire field as unreliable. Nichols argues this misunderstanding creates unrealistic expectations for experts. Instead of focusing on the insights they provide, we judge them harshly for not being infallible. And to make matters worse, some experts do lie, and the consequences are devastating. When experts act unethically, they don't just harm their professions, they erode the public's trust in all expertise. Nichols explains that this misconduct creates a ripple effect, making people even more skeptical of future advice, even when it's legitimate. So the key takeaways here. Modern journalism often prioritises engagement over truth, amplifying misinformation. Society demands perfect predictions from experts, ignoring the probabilistic nature of many fields. And then lastly, dishonest experts damage not only their fields, but also public trust and expertise as a whole. Part 8, cultural and celebrity influence. The danger of celebrity endorsements, because in today's world where social media amplifies every voice, celebrities often hold outsized influence. But here's the problem with this. Many of these public figures confidently weigh in on topics they know very little about. Tom Nichols explains how celebrities frequently push fads, false alarms, and unproven claims, influencing millions of followers to adopt bad ideas, from promoting questionable health supplements to misrepresenting scientific facts. Their reach can cause widespread misinformation. Think about it, would you trust a famous actor to perform heart surgery, or a popular singer to design an airplane? Well, of course not. Yet when these same individuals speak about climate change, health policy, or educational reform, many take their words as truth simply because of their celebrity status. What's worse is we have a cultural shift towards charisma over credentials. Nichols argues that this reflects a broader cultural issue. Society often prioritises charisma over expertise. In a world where attention spans are short and headlines dominate, people are more likely to trust a confident, well-spoken celebrity than a quiet, qualified expert. This preference has real consequences. Experts, those who spent years studying complex issues, are often overshadowed by a louder, more popular voice. And when these voices spread misinformation, it undermines public trust in genuine knowledge. This cultural shift fuels a dangerous trend, the devaluation of expertise itself. When a celebrity opinion dominates public discourse, it becomes harder for people to recognise and respect the voices of those who are truly qualified to address complex problems. So, the key takeaways. Celebrities often speak confidently on topics far outside their expertise, spreading misinformation. 2. Society's preference for charisma over credentials undermines the value of expertise. And then lastly, this trend erodes trust in qualified experts and the institutions that support them. So, we're at the end of the video. Let's recap. We've seen society's rejection of expertise stems from narcissism, misinformation, and growing distrust in professionals. Education has shifted from fostering critical thinking to prioritising credentials, creating fragile egos and shallow understanding. The internet then has amplified misinformation, encouraging echo chambers and shallow thinking over deep analysis. Then we looked at cultural forces like celebrity influence. The result? Expertise is devalued and society is paying the price in poor decision making and a growing divide between experts and the public. A pretty bleak situation, but if you found this breakdown interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Wise Words.